along in the wrong direction. Well, we're all here.
I'd like to call to order the Middletown City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 21st, 2023. We could please start with a moment of meditation followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Skank, when you're ready, will you please call the roll for us?
Mr. Farrell.
Here.
Ms. Thomas.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Here.
Mayor Condrey.
Here. I've noticed we have our new incumbent council members and mayor in the house tonight. Congratulations to all of you. I was telling them, well, at least Jennifer and Stephen earlier, they're welcome to call me. I may say, oh, it's a good one, it's a tough decision. Sounds like it's your problem. So I'm just kidding. I'll always be available. I'm sure we all will to help you guys out moving forward. But congratulations, and it was great to see such a big voter turnout for the election in Middletown. So thank you, everyone who came out to the polls. They will officially take over on January 1st. So that's why we're all still sitting up here if some people are confused by that. We are going to wait just a few moments. In the meeting, we have an individual coming for our proclamation who's just running a little bit late, so we're going to do our citizen comments first, and as soon as that person arrives, we'll work them in. So it looks like this evening we have 2 citizen comment cards. I just ask that you state your name and address for the record when you come up, and we're happy to listen to you for up to 4 minutes. We start with Jennifer Chen, followed by Steve West.
My name is Jennifer Chen. I live 23 Santa Fe Road, and I didn't have time to finish this, but hold on, one page back. So I watched the November 7th council meeting discussion about filling the pending vacancy on council. I was flabbergasted by how complicated you were making it. We were talking about coming up with a process, applications, reviewing, vetting people, and then the 4 of you going behind closed doors to choose somebody to represent us. We just went through that process, minus the decision behind closed doors, just 14 days ago. 14 days. It was a process run by an outside organization. It was fair, it was transparent. The candidates were generated by petitions of the people. The voters had an opportunity to meet them and read about them, and they voted for the people they wanted to represent them. One of the ideas that was put forth as a reason for the 4 of you choosing someone was that you will have 4 inexperienced people coming in, and only you, with your knowledge and expertise on being council people, can choose someone suitably experienced, I suppose. Trying to find where I left off. The first thing I would like to say, though, that the idea that you have 4 inexperienced people coming in, using that term, I find very offensive to the people who were elected. I think it's offensive and disrespectful of them and of the choice of the voters for them. Obviously, we felt that they had the requisite experience and knowledge. I would encourage you to read about them and learn something about them so that you understand how much experience, knowledge, education that they come with. And I think it's absurd that the idea that only you have the experience to choose someone suitable. And that's as far as I got, because where I was going with that is, we just voted. And rather than going through a long process that's going to take a lot of time, applications, reviewing people, vetting people, and then choosing one, we just chose 3 out of 7 candidates. Where I'm going is, it would just be simple, fast, fair, transparent, respectful of the voters, to ask the person who came in 3rd if he would like to have the seat. If not, then you go to the person who came in 4th. We spoke we wanted to represent us. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve West.
Good evening. Steve West, 529 Euclid Street. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, members of council. Paul, everybody here. So as Nicole said, I just won the election, or one of the seats, I should say. And a lot of people reached out to me and said, oh, the voters spoke. You should press to make the new council make the decision. But I remind everybody, yeah, I mean, they just spoke, but everybody sitting up here, they spoke both 2 and 4 years ago. So we respect those votes just as much as we did the votes 2 weeks ago. So I just wanted to publicly state I fully support if current council moves forward on selecting, who's going to fulfill Rodney's soon-to-be vacant seat. Fully support that. If it doesn't happen and it's on our plate in January, so be it. But I'm not going to press and say, hey, there's a lot of knowledge and experience up here, and I respect all of you, and 4 of you, thank you so much for your years, and especially you, Tal. I think you've been on council how many years? 8 years. So that's a lot of time, a lot of volunteerism, a lot of knowledge represented up here. So thank you all so much, and I truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. The other thing I did was I went back and told them congratulations, and then I said I really should be saying thank you, because when people told me congratulations, I thought, for volunteering? Really, the thing is thank you. Thank you for being willing to step up to the plate. We're proud of you that you won, but more than anything, it's more of a thank you than it is a congratulations, I think, because we're going to be leaning on you guys, so thank you. We're not quite ready for a proclamation, so let's go ahead and do council comments. Mr. Muterspaw, would you like to start?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Downtown looks fantastic. I just drove through coming up here, and it looks really nice, and excited for Light Up Middletown to start up in a few nights to take the grandkids. So that's every year it's a place to go. So kudos to the staff and the Grandpa Gang and that group for what they do. This will be my last council meeting. I just wanted to say thank you to everybody for supporting and voting for me a few years back, and it's unfortunate, how things happen in life, and you have to make priorities your top thing. I mean, you have to, and family is always a priority, and this is something that was unexpected, and I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, and specifically thank you to you 4. It's been quite a ride since the first meeting, and we've had some good times and some bad times, and I know you guys are going to continue to thrive in everything you're doing, but I just want you guys to know how much I appreciate working with you, even though we didn't always see eye to eye on things. That's normal. People don't always, see eye to eye, and that's why we have 5 of us up here. And but there's no doubt, I was just telling the mayor before the meeting, the passion that you guys have for the city, I wish the public could see it every day, because we see it in our messages and our emails and our conversations, and the passion you guys have to do this, because I don't think most people understand this is basically a volunteer job, and she just alluded to that. You're doing this for nothing, for gas money is what you're up here for. No health insurance benefits, nothing like that. You're just out here doing it, and so it's just commendable. Zach, I want to say thank you specifically, because when we ran 2 years ago and made all this and came aboard, I mean, you kind of rejuvenated me, because I had definitely lost my spark for the city and the passion for it, and you brought that back. So I want to say thank you, and just that we become pretty good friends, and I know that you're going to thrive in the next 2 years, or hopefully longer than 2 years. That's what we're hoping. So I just want to thank you for bringing a different perspective to everything. But I just really want to say thank you guys, and I'm sorry that I'm bailing on you guys. It's priorities, and I have to make the right decision for me and my wife. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Moon.
Yes, thank you. I also want to congratulate Elizabeth. She was here, but I don't see her anymore. Elizabeth, Steve, and Jennifer on your election. It's a big job, but I know you're up to it. And call me anytime, email me anytime. I'm here to help. I'm not going anywhere. Wishing you the best, and we'll be here to support you. Rodney, I wasn't sure when this was all going to happen, so I guess I would just say I know this hadn't been an easy decision at all. I'm sure you're really torn between two things that you really love. But wanted to tell you personally, I really enjoyed both serving on council with you and working with you when you were chief. You were an awesome chief, and you did an excellent job for the city. I hope the public knows how much this man loves this city. To give 3 decades? 3 decades of your life to make it a better place, and you certainly did that. So I understand your reasons, and they make perfect sense, and I'm personally thankful for you and your friendship and your leadership, and I know you won't be going far, and if we need you or the future council or the city needs you, you're always willing to help, even if you're not sitting up here. So all the best.
Thank you, Tal.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mrs. Thomas.
Thank you, Mayor. Rodney, don't ever lose your spark. That's all I have to say. Because I think that what you are capable of doing is igniting a passion in people for Middletown. And that's a really difficult thing to do sometimes when you're faced with some of the negativity or some of the challenges that are presented, both in your previous position as chief and in your position on city council. It's not always easy. And so inspiring people is something that you have brought to council and brought to the city. And don't ever lose that passion. I have enjoyed working with you and getting to know you better, and just all of our conversations and everything that we've been able to do together here on council and for the city. I very much appreciate you.
Thank you.
And I hope we don't lose touch, and I hope that the city doesn't lose your passion when you leave, and that you find some other way to push that out into the community.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you will.
Well, we'll never lose touch because the marinara sauce at Bandanas is the best around, so you know that.
We'll know where to find each other.
Exactly.
But I appreciate you so much, and I understand your reasons for needing to take a step away. I know that certainly serving this city for 4 years has been an honor of mine, and you never know what the future will hold for you, or what opportunities you might have to continue to serve the city. So I look forward to finding those opportunities myself, and I hope that you're able to as well. The city certainly will benefit from that. And I just also want to say congratulations and thank you to all the candidates who ran and put their name out there and put effort and energy into an effort to represent our city. I think there are a lot of ways that you can do that in boards and commissions and running again, and you just never know what's in store for you. So to those who won, to Jennifer, congratulations. Steve, congratulations. I know Elizabeth was here, but I'm sure that she had someplace else to be. I think there's I know that there is a fundraiser for Art Central Foundation at Bandanas tonight, and she is a guest bartender. So if you all are looking for her, that's where you'll find her. But I think that's all I have for this evening. To address the comments about the selection of the next city council person, I was not here at the last meeting, so just to address that, I think that it is going to be a difficult decision that we're faced with, but when you join city council, you are often faced with very difficult decisions that you might not immediately have the answer for or know what the path forward is. But we were elected, and you all were elected to be those people for the city and to make decisions on their behalf. So should it be our decision I hope that we make the right one and that it is a decision that's good for the city of Middletown, because that's the commitment that we make when we join and we serve this city in this capacity, is to make good decisions for Middletown. So I'm confident that we'll be able to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Farrell.
Thanks, Mayor. A few things. So first of all, prayers to our neighbors up north, up in Beaver Creek with the shooting yesterday. So now on to happy things. First of all, congratulations to the new members up here. I'm excited by myself, I guess, to serve with all you. Elizabeth, Jennifer, Steve, I've sat down with all you guys. I'm really excited for your passion and your commitment. So look forward to the next couple years. I, on behalf of the new council, would like to invite all of you guys. So when the groundbreaking happens for the highway project, I know how much we've all put into that. On behalf of, as long as the new council's all right with that, I'd love to have you guys there for the beginning of that. And then obviously, Rodney, you know how I feel about you. We could, sit here and say on, but you became like a father to me. Really appreciate everything you've done for me and everything you've done for the city. So we'll miss you.
Are you buying lunch when you invite us to the groundbreaking, Zach?
It's
Pretty cheap.
We'll see what we can do. Chipotle's on the way out there, maybe. We'll see what we can do. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. So many different things I could talk about today. I'll start with Ronnie. Thank you so much for your service. I know
Mayor.
A lot of citizens look to you for guidance on how they should view Middletown in a lot of ways, and so when you make the positive spark like Mrs. Thomas is talking about, it really has a ripple. So thank you for that, and I'm sure, knowing your Facebook presence, we have not heard the last
Thank
of
you,
Mr.
Mayor.
Muterspaw. So
Thank you.
please keep that up. We appreciate it very
Thanks,
much.
Mayor.
I think yesterday was at Mr. Lawley's 34 years of service to Middletown. I thought I'd just recognize that. That's a lot of time.
34.
34 years. Thank you for continuing and leading our city. I'm grateful for that. I think what I would like to propose as far as Mr. Muterspaw, the discussion about his replacement, I think we plan to do an open session discussion about the process. We'll do that as new business if everybody's okay with that. That way it's clear what the process will be. I think we kind of talked about how the process doesn't need to be an executive session topic as much as it could be. We would rather that be as transparent as possible. So we can do that, and then we'll still plan to do the executive session and see if there's anything that council members had that they wanted to talk about in that session. So we'll do that in new business. We'll have that discussion if everyone's okay with that. Okay. Santa Parade, Saturday, 4 p.m. I believe it kicks off on Central Avenue. So it'll be my first Santa Parade as mayor because I'm usually out of town, but I wrote my family to coming to town this time. So get to join the Santa Parade. I'm pretty excited. It should be a really good one. And I met with Elizabeth, the incoming mayor, last week. So we have a great relationship started. I passed a lot of my own personal thoughts and advice and listened to her as well. So I'm glad to see we have a good transition, I think, moving into the new council, and we're all open to helping and sharing and always being available for everyone. So hope that that's a good feeling for all of the town, because I know that it is a lot of change all at once, but really we're all still here. So I believe we have at this point our guest for our proclamation. So if we can do that, and then we'll go to our city manager reports after that. So we have Carla Boldery here with SBDC, Small Business Development Center, Miami Regionals, and we're going to do a proclamation for Small Business Saturday, which is the same day as the Santa Parade, by the way. I want to come up there and join you. I don't know. Let's face the city and the citizens. What do you think? Okay. Whereas the City of Middletown, Ohio celebrates our local small businesses and the contributions they make to our local economy and community. We appreciate the individuals with big ideas and the drive to make them come true. And whereas, according to the U.S. Small Business Administration, there are 33.2 million small businesses in the United States. Small businesses represent 99.7% of firms with paid employees, are responsible for 62.7% of net new jobs created since 1995, and employ 46.4% of the employees in the private sector in the United States. And whereas 68 cents of every dollar spent at a small business in the United States stays in the local community, and every dollar spent at a small business creates an additional 48 cents in local business activity as a result of employees and local businesses purchasing local goods and services. And whereas 72% of consumers reported that Small Business Saturday 2022 made them want to shop and dine at small, independently owned retailers and restaurants all year long. And whereas Middletown, Ohio supports our local small businesses that create jobs, boost our local economy, and preserve our community. Advocacy groups, as well as public and private organizations across the country, have endorsed this Saturday after Thanksgiving as Small Business Saturday. Now, therefore, I, Nicole Condry, Mayor of Middletown, Ohio, do hereby proclaim November 25th, 2023 as Small Business Saturday and urge the residents of our community and communities across the country to support small businesses and merchants on Small Business Saturday and to shop small throughout the year. Thank you very much for SVDC and all that you guys do for our small businesses locally. And if you're a small business and don't know that they're here, they're a partner for you to use, a great resource, and they're actually co-located with us in the city building. So come on out. Economic Development Department works with them, and they're here to help. So thank you, everyone, for spending your money locally, not just Saturday, but all the time.
Absolutely. Thank
So
you very much, Mayor. And on behalf of my team and the city of Middletown, we'll look forward to continue our work with small businesses, specifically with those here at the city. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to city manager reports.
Thank you, Mayor. I just got a couple quick things. First of all, Councilman Muterspaw, on behalf of the staff of the city of Middletown, we'd like to thank you very much for everything you've done for staff over the last 30-plus years, probably 34 years, just like me, and especially the last 2 years. You have been an advocate for staff. You've been there to push for the betterment of staff, and we greatly appreciate that. So we know you'll still be around, and we like that. But thank you especially for supporting staff for the last 2 years.
Thank you.
The next thing I have is I don't have a report tonight, but at the next council meeting, I want to let you guys know, and the incoming council members, because they probably want to be here. Jacob Schulte, our Economic Development Program Manager, will be given a in-depth presentation on lost my train of thought here, the recreational marijuana legislation that was just passed, how it may affect us, and the direction council and staff needs to go to discussing how it's going to affect Middletown, what we can do, what we feel we should do. So we will have that at the next council meeting, December 5th, correct? And so we look forward to that, and then I think we can begin a discussion on that, okay? So that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. That brings us to consent agenda. Ms. Kank, will you please present that for us this evening?
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the city council minutes from the special and regular meetings of December 6, 2022. To receive and file the following board and commission minutes: the Planning Commission from September 13th and October 19th, 2023. From the Board of Health from October 10th, 2023. To confirm the personnel appointments of Jasmine Osmond to the position of Corrections Officer in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police. The appointments of Kennedy Ballinger and Jonathan Zachary Hoover to the position of Patrol Officer in the Department of Public Safety, Division of Police. The appointment of Paul Jenna to the position of Water Reclamation Maintenance Supervisor in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Water Reclamation. And the appointment of Ryland Kraft to the position of Mechanic in the Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Municipal Garage.
I'd like to move that the matters listed under the consent agenda be considered routine and enacted by one motion and one vote of consent.
Second.
Ms. Kank, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condry?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
On the motion agenda item, we have to accept the Renaissance Point subdivision plat and public improvements shown thereon, except that the following items shown on the plat are not accepted and should be removed from the final plat before endorsement and recording. Number one, the parking easement depicted on Lot 2 Number 2, the depiction of the private portion of Atrium Boulevard and the public parking and access easement associated therewith. And 3, the public parking and access easement language shown on page 1 of the plat.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Any comments or questions on this one? Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell.
Yes.
Item B, to authorize the city manager to grant a permanent easement to Duke Energy on city-owned parcel Q65110130000021.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Comments or questions? Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
And item C, to approve the renewal of the city's stop-loss health insurance coverage for 2024 with Optum Insurance.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Comments or questions? Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to legislation. Brody, are you ready?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The first item tonight under legislation is ordinance number O 2023-92, an ordinance providing for the termination of a tax increment financing exemption previously authorized by the City Council pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 5709.40B, and ordinance number O 2005-142, as amended by ordinance number O 2015-81, declaring the improvement of certain real property located in the city of Middletown, Ohio, to be a public purpose in connection with the establishment of a tax increment financing exemption pursuant to Ohio Revised Code Section 5709.41, declaring such property to be exempt from real property taxation, designating improvements to be made that will benefit such property, requiring the owners thereof to make service payments in lieu of taxes, establishing an urban redevelopment tax increment equivalent fund for the deposit of such service payments, authorizing a compensation agreement to be executed between the city, the Franklin City School District, and the Warren County Career Center, together with related authorizations, and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Is this being considered as a first reading or second reading emergency?
Second reading.
Okay. 'Cause I couldn't remember if we actually read it in last week or not,
We did.
2 weeks ago.
Yes.
Any comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Ms. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw,
Yes.
Mayor Condrey.
Yes.
Item number 2 is ordinance number O 2020.
Oh,
20
shoot, did we make a motion to waive the, oh, we don't have to? Oh, sorry, all right, got it.
Got it. We'll get it.
Ooh, I
Thank
just
you.
panicked, I was like,
No,
oh no, we
all
just passed
good.
emergency.
I almost did too when
All right, sorry to interrupt, I just wanted to make
all
sure
good.
we did that correctly. Okay,
Item 2 is ordinance number O 2023-95, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing the lease of a 2-node network attached storage device through Dell Financial Services LLC and declaring an emergency. And this is also, I think, a second reading emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
I don't have anything further to add.
I had a lot of questions about this one, obviously, I appreciate IT's responses. I think Bill did a lot of thorough work in responding to me on it. It sounds like, because there's so many companies out there who offer NAS products, and I don't like that we're not putting it out to bid. It sounds like it was a staffing issue as to why it was an emergency, and that in May, somebody knew about the problem, and then, or that, not the problem, but that there was an end of life on the support, and then maybe that person left, and there was a password lost to a system, and now we're doing an emergency and foregoing the bidding process. The argument that the fire suppression system only got one bid or no bids, I don't really see how that's relevant as to why we're not bidding this out. I'm not trying to be unsupportive of staff here. This should have been done a while ago, and we should have put it to bid. I'm happy to support it now. It's just a little, I don't know. I think it doesn't sit super well with me. Maybe there's a process we could use to make sure our passwords for these enterprise things are saved as a department, so that if we do have people who leave, that we can maybe get to them easier. I don't know what that should be, but that was kind of like what I got from the back and forth, and there's a lot of details, and I'm seeing a shaking of head. Yeah, if you, yeah, I don't want to just say that, and if you think that's not what it was, I don't want to string that along.
First off, thank you for listening to me. We lost no passwords. I think that was a miscommunication.
Okay.
The problem we have is it's electronic. So you think you have 6 months and the system comes up and says, uh-oh, I don't want to work anymore, and starts generating thousands of emails saying I'm going to quit. So that's where we're at. We were planning on moving to the cloud. That's the cloud, you know. But again, you still have to have someone here or somewhere here to save it. So that's the purpose of this NAS. As they started to fail, we had hoped to be somewhere else at the end of 2023. We're not. So we're caught in the point of either we go out and drop $200,000 on a piece of equipment that at the end is useless, or we can go into a lease, and I think we've explained that, so we're not sitting here holding old items. The whole goal of this is to potentially get to Office 365 just like everyone else. But the thing that's different is we're 24/7, 365. So we have to have storage locally for backups, cameras, whether the internet works or not. So that's the reason why we're still in this technology. The cloud isn't a direct replacement for that. We would then use the cloud as one of the backup targets for this device. All of that does not answer your question of why it did not go out to bid. I'll be honest with you, IT is a Dell shop. We like Dell, that's what we know. We like to stick with what we know because it's been a well performer. It's performed well for me for 28 years. You go out to bid, you put the city on something that you may not know what it is, and it may fail, and then that's the problem. So when you're looking at enterprise hardware, we go with prime vendors. Dell works off of a first vendor contact. The first vendor that we've contacted that gets a price for us gets special pricing. That's the way the game is. So I get what you're saying, that we like to bid. We don't like to buy it this way either. We're at the end of the year. We got special pricing for Q4, and the device is starting to fail. It's not just end of life, it's end of support. They won't help us. So we're kind of at this crossroads where we need a little hump to get us to Office, to get us to the cloud. It's just a change of how IT is changing from a you own it to you rent it. And it just takes a little bit of time to ramp up the budget for that. So,
Okay, well, thank you, Trey.
all right, you're welcome.
Yeah, and I was glad to see you guys are looking at Office 365. Obviously, there are government uses for it. I mean, we're not the only ones who have to run 24/7. Lots of people are on it who run 24/7. So I think it's definitely the way we need to move, and it may cost more in the end, but what we'll get out of it is probably far greater and more efficient staff, which.
We'll be looking for that in the 2024 budget. So
Cool, great, good. Yeah, I think sometimes we can look to technology more to solve some of our staffing, I don't want to say problems, but gaps, right? So technology can help us run more lean and efficiently, and appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions on this legislation item? Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 3 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-98, an ordinance establishing the pay ranges, pay policy, and benefits for various salaried and hourly classifications within the service of the city. This is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, I don't have anything further to add than what we've discussed the last couple meetings. I will say the next two deal with the pay ordinance. The first one, number 3, deals with the general pay ordinance of essentially all the non-collective bargaining employees, and then number 4 deals specifically with the Department of Health and Environment. If you have any further questions, we'd be happy to answer.
I had 2 questions. I know you guys had a long discussion about this last time, but the mayor had asked what the overall aggregate total increase was. And I think you guys were going to follow up on that. And I see Mr. Cahill pulling out a note card here.
So with the change in in some of the step structure and ranges or whatnot. The overall citywide change is $147,000. To the general fund, it's about 58.4, and the remainder would be to our non-general funds.
Okay. And this does not deal with any collectively bargained?
No, sir.
Not at all,
Okay.
no.
This is strictly,
Yeah, strictly our 100,
Non-union employees.
yep,
150
okay.
or so non-union employees.
Thank you for clarifying.
Now, also understand that that does not include the 3% cost of living allowance.
So, if, you going to say something, Monica? Okay. I just want to make something really clear. We have some employees here, and the last meeting when we had this conversation, an open conversation about these raises and these step increases, we understand 100% that unions have these constant built-in raises. We get that. I know I was a benefactor of that for years, being in a union, and then when I became an administrator, didn't have that anymore. So I understand those benefits. The questions that we were asking last week and probably would be asking tonight is simply for one reason, is that for everybody that's getting a raise, there's somebody that feels they're not getting it. So we have to ask those questions. We're not doing our job as a council if we don't ask those hard questions publicly for the world to hear. And that's one reason why we do that. I will say, on my experience in the past, we did have, and this is not a knock on a city manager, Paul, making this clear. We had a city manager years ago get a $25,000 bump while everybody else was getting 1% and 2%. And that divided our building for over a year. And that's one of the reasons we have to bring this up and talk about that. That's very important to note. There's reasons behind these questions. So a lot of the questions we got from other employees who weren't getting these bumps that aren't in a union is how come I'm not getting it and this person's getting it? Or how come? So we got a bunch of those messages. So we owe and we have a due diligence to ask those questions. And I know I talked to some of you here about that when you reached out. Remember also, this is the council that gave everybody a non-negotiated 5% raise. And we thought that was important to do. Now, I'm going to vote yes on this tonight. I'm not happy with some of the things I saw. But what I don't want is somebody who works their butt off here and deserves a raise when they're getting paid less than agencies around us who don't do half the work. I don't want you to not get a raise because I'm not happy with other things. It's hard for me as a former city employee and as a council member and an outgoing council member now to not see you get the raise. And this is not a knock on management saying they're getting paid. What it is we just want to be fair. When I was the police chief, Chief Burke, who was Major Burke at the time, did the budget, and he was really good at it, and we would sit and we would go over what's fair. Like right now, we have corrections officers making $18 an hour, man. We can't keep them. Nobody's going to work. You can go to Lee's Famous Recipe and make $20 an hour right now. So that's things we have to fix as a city. We just do. So the point I'm making is I hope you understand why we asked these questions last week and why it's so important to talk about it openly. Because this is taxpayer dollars. So people want to know what's being spent and what's being spent for. So I just wanted to share that, Mayor, with the group, is my personal feelings about why we did this last week. I hope you didn't take offense to it. That's what we do. We have to ask those hard questions. And staff has been great about talking about it with us. But that's how I feel about it. And I know we've had some conversation up here. I know Zach and I have too. And I'm not happy with some of the things I saw in there. But I can't not vote yes because that means you won't get raises then. And I'll just leave it at that.
I also do appreciate the time that staff spent with us as council members to answer all of our questions and meet with us and help us to understand why there are the questions there are and why there are some nuances to this and what data they've used to back up their decision on the increases that they're making. And also express my support for staff and all of staff and all of the hard work that you all do, and let you all know that you do deserve what our neighbors are getting. And we are a city that should be comparable with the cities around us. And we work really hard all the time to make that the case. So we're going to continue working hard to be comparable to the cities around us and to retain our talent and to appreciate them and to retain them. So I appreciate all of the discussion that was had last week or 2 weeks ago when I was not present, but also appreciate staff for helping us to understand the process.
Yeah, to Rodney's point, I agree with pretty much everybody up here, but a couple things. I had a meeting last week with the mayor and some city staff members, and to just air it out there. Right now, unfortunately, where we're at as a city, we're turning away developers. We do not have the staff in order to return emails, to return phone calls, and that's not my words. So in questioning some of this, my goal is to make this city sustainable, not today, but long-term. So for example, when I look in our general fund balance, a really solid city will have 20 to 25% of their budget in reserves. So for us, our budget, it's somewhere around 37 to 40 million, depending. So if we're a solid city, we'll have $8 to $10 million in the bank. Right now, we have 22.3. We are sitting on a lot of money. We can afford to give these employees raises, and we need to. We have to start retaining talent. We lost a lot of talent many, many years ago because we could not afford to pay these people. So it's important to pay these people, but at the same time, we have to figure out some type of plan. And about the whole not returning developer calls and the questions about that and the conversations about that. I can tell you today, I hate to air dirty laundry, but I got a call from a developer today that has been trying to reach the city for a couple days now, and he can't get a response, and so he went onto the city website and he's reaching out to council. We have to change that. We can't just continue to sit here. And that's nobody's fault that's in charge right now. It's just we don't have enough people. We started out this year with $16 million in the bank, roughly. Right now we have about 22 million. That means you guys have done a great job of budgeting. That means we've put $6 million extra in the bank. But I asked myself, as we continue to sit on money, are we robbing our citizens if we're not investing back into the city? So next year, we've done a good job of it. We've stacked the bank, but in talking to council for next year, we have to be aggressive. If we need to hire people, if we need to pay consultants to come in and make sure that this money gets put back into the city, that's what we have to do. So that's going to be one of my goals for next year. I'm not trying to sit on my soapbox, but we have money. We are secure financially for the first time in a very long time. So I'm happy to see these employees get these raises, but money's great, but we will not retain talent if they're overworked. We have to get them help. And that's a plea to everybody here. So anyways, that's where I'm at. I'm going to vote yes for it, but it's not just for today. It's not just these raises. It's getting our staff help. So I'm going to be supportive of that. Whatever the city manager's office needs, we're going to, at least for my one vote, we're going to pursue that aggressively. So I have.
Well, I'll follow Zach's comments up with what I anticipate is coming in our email inboxes now is a bunch of nonprofits asking for money after everybody hears we got that. I think one thing that the council and staff have done a very good job at is trying to catch up on a lot of capital improvements that really needed to happen recently. And so I think that push has put us in a good place where now that we've focused on that for a while, it's time, I think, that the push can be made for economic development and more efforts and money and either whether it's staffing or whatever it might be to be actually pushed in that arena, because I think that is the key to Middletown's future, and that we haven't necessarily had the time, energy, and money put there. And I know Mr. Cahill had some really great ideas about ways we could do that and leverage what we have to get a lot out of it. So I'm excited to see what staff can do with that moving forward. I definitely appreciate all the time you guys spent working with us on the proposal, but also the salary study as well. And the big thing is, if you look at it at a high level and you see raises and stuff, well, there's a lot more to this than the salaries that are sitting in front of people. It's not an an apples to apples kind of comparison by any means, so that makes it very difficult. And I think a lot of people are maybe oversimplifying what's sitting in front of us. There's a lot more that goes into it. I will say the salary study was one very difficult to process. We kind of had a little bit of a laugh about that, but if it's done in the future, I'm not sure I would use the same company. But delving into it, one of the takeaways I had was that the benefits to our city staff that we're giving are above average, and in many cases well above average. And so I want to make sure that this study specifically highlights that. And so we look at, yes, we're giving raises, but we're also have a really great benefits package here, and that's not captured in the salary numbers. And I hope that when we're recruiting and we're out there that we help promote that as well. And I'm sure we are, but I just want to mention that part because it's not just the number that someone's getting paid, right? It's everything that surrounds that. And the other thing is that the title and the position in one city isn't necessarily the same as another city. The responsibilities aren't necessarily the same. And so again, we compare maybe one to another, and it's not exactly a great comparison either. So that's difficult, I know, for staff to try to figure out and for us. But I just want to mention that those are a few kind of discrepancies that when you look at it from a very simple state, that it's a lot more in depth. And so if you haven't taken the time to do all the research on all the numbers, maybe either have a little bit kinder way of looking at it, or maybe take the extra time to do it, because it's not that simple. And I know you guys put a lot of work into it, so appreciate that very much, and was very open-eared to the discussions and grateful for it.
And I appreciate council sitting down and listening and getting the whole picture. And Councilman Farrell, if there's any developers or somebody not getting phones answered or getting back, I need to know that, because there shouldn't be any reason for that. So if you have those contacts, and if anyone hears of that, let me know, and I'll get the problem corrected immediately.
Okay, appreciate that.
Okay, any more comments or questions? We're all obviously very grateful for city staff and all that you guys put in, and you're the heartbeat of the city down here, and our citizens appreciate all that you do. Okay, Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 4 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-99, an ordinance establishing pay ranges and certain benefits for employee classifications in the Middletown Department of Health and Environment. This is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
I guess we can just add Grohl right from 3 to 4.
Anything else to add on this one? Okay. Ms. Skank, please call the roll.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Legislative item 5 is resolution number R 2023-30, a resolution adopting the applicable portions of the 2023 Butler County, Ohio Hazard Mitigation Plan on behalf of the city of Middletown and declaring an emergency. And I think this is also a second reading emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, this is the city of Middletown's participation with several jurisdictions in Butler County Hazardous Mitigation Plan. What this does is assures that the city's eligibility to receive federal disaster funds through FEMA if we would ever need to. Hopefully we never will, but this keeps us in that plan.
Comments or questions? Ms. Skank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muterspaw?
Yes.
Next is resolution number R 2023-33, a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept an Ohio EMA ARPA First Responder Retention Incentives Grant and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, the next two pieces of legislation, number 6 and number 7, is to accept and then pay for the 2022 Ohio EMA ARPA Public Safety Retention Grant of $288,000. This grant goes directly to firefighters who were employed prior to June 17th of 2022 during the pandemic. It amounts to a one-time payment of $4,000 per firefighter. There is no financial impact to the city, and this is an emergency due to deadlines we have to meet within the next couple weeks.
Comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Gank, you please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Ms. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Item 7 is ordinance number O-2023-100, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a memorandum of understanding with IAFF Local 336 for the payment of the Ohio EMA ARPA First Responder Retention Incentives Grant and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Comments or questions? Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Next item is ordinance number O-2023-101, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing the purchase of a de-icing cart from Textron Ground Support Equipment and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 9 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-102, an ordinance authorizing the issuance of notes in the amount of not to exceed $14,840,000 in anticipation of the issuance of bonds for the purpose of designing, engineering, constructing, acquiring, renovating, and improving various municipal infrastructure permanent improvements for the Renaissance Arena District project, including water mains, sanitary sewers and storm sewers, public roads and streets and related curbs and gutters, grading, landscaping, and otherwise improving the sites thereof, and equipment and appurtenances as may be necessary in connection therewith, and authorizing and approving related matters and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
My mic went out.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Gank, can you please call the roll?
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Number 10 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-103, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an extension of the contract with CBM Managed Services, now known as Summit Food Service, for jail food service in 2024. This is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Nothing further to add?
Comments or questions from council? Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
The next item is ordinance number O-2023-104, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing an extension of the current contract with Smart Bill Limited for the printing and mailing of water bills. This is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Nothing further to add?
Comments or questions?
Only we could get our other vendors to keep their prices the same for over a decade.
Yes. Yeah, that's a good point. You scared me there for a second.
No. Yeah.
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Item 12 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-105, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Polydyne Incorporated for the purchase of polymer for use at the water reclamation facility for the year 2024. This is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Nothing further to add?
Comments or questions? Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Item 13 is resolution number R 2023-34, a resolution to make appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, Counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31, 2024. This is for the annual budget in 2024, and it is a second reading.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Council, the only thing I have to add here is that, as we have done in many years, we, in January, plan on having a work session, probably on a Saturday, for a strategic planning session, and we'll get, probably do a lot in depth on economic development. I know it's Councilman Farrell's goal for 2024. We are actually working on a presentation now about where we've been, what our strategic plan is we're in right now, and then certainly with the new council, set that direction and the path to go.
Hearing no more comments or questions, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Next is ordinance number O 2023-106, a special ordinance establishing a procedure and specific standards for the award of a construction manager at risk contract for the Robert Sunny Hill Jr. Community Center renovation project and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Assistant City Manager Kay Hall will brief you on this piece of legislation.
Mayor, members of council, before you is legislation that would authorize a special procurement procedure, much like we're doing for the firehouses, where the city would have an RFP process and select a construction manager at risk. As you may recall, we previously bid out a somewhat differently scoped project in conjunction with the school district earlier this year, and we're always mindful of the feedback we get from the bidding community. And one of the things that, in consultation with our design professionals, as well as some of the folks that expressed some interest there, that a better means by doing this project may be with a construction manager at risk process. The good thing for that one is that at the end of the day, with your selected construction manager, you agree upon ahead of time a guaranteed maximum price. With a few force majeure exceptions, is that's going to be your maximum exposure. In a project of this size and the timetable we're working on, I think it allows the construction manager to be a little bit more nimble in terms of negotiations with subcontractors and the like that we may not be able to do through a traditional procurement process. So with this in place, assuming your concurrence with this measure, then the city would then release an RFP, and we would have somebody on board hopefully by middle of probably early January, and still hit the mark for starting construction here probably towards the very beginning of the second quarter next year and get going.
Nathan, I know we talked about this with the previous project, and there was concern about the cost it would add to it. Any comments on that and how it's going to
No, the good thing is that we already had a dry run from one bidder that was one of two that we had discussed this scenario with, and we believe that we'll be even in I think we'll end up with a little bit better number using this arrangement. Simply because this allows the construction manager, one of the advantages is that if you're bidding it as a prime day one, you have to assume or already pre-negotiate with all your subcontractors what their price is going to be. Well, that may be fine and dandy for the excavator or some of the folks doing some of the initial work, but the drywall guys and girls or the finished painters, they're having to hold price or guess what their price is going to be maybe 10, 11, 12 months from now. And so you always kind of you have to bake in that contingency, whereas this allows the construction manager within that maximum limit to parcel out and bid out those packages as they go in a closer snapshot. Plus, it also allows folks that may not have thought today that I'm going to have space on my dance card, but maybe a job or two falls through, and now they're available when 6 months prior they said, man, I can't do this job. So,
Just one other comment, and I know we had talked about it a couple months ago, but I would think, you know, I'm not sure if this is the next step or if there's other steps after it, but at some point, probably before the end of the year, we kind of need to wrap up the Sunny Hill project.
Yeah.
The committee, rather. And it might be nice to say, hey, this is going out for bid, and kind of give them a scope and talk about the work they put in. So just kind of wanted to throw that on your radar, that we probably still do need to wrap it up.
That's a very good point, I think, and for council's edification, the next stage is this is going concurrently with us papering up the second tranche of ARPA dollars from our friends at Butler County. We should have that locked in here probably by the middle of December. Once we have that arrangement, then we'll be in a position then to ultimately come to council with final construction contracts and final appropriations of the ARPA dollars and everything else, and wrap everything up. Then the hard work begins.
Question. In the workbook, it talked about an evaluation committee that would make the final selections on this. Is that a city staff? Is that a public? Who specifically would be on?
Yeah, typically when we do these, it would be internal staff, so it would be folks, usually a cross-section of probably somebody like our finance director, maybe myself, or public works director, maybe others on staff that will evaluate and judge this.
Okay. And so at what point would we, I assume in January, but at what point would we figure out what council's willing to spend? Would it be in December with this council? Will it be January new council?
Ultimately, I think where the timing's going to be is that there'll probably be a CMR agreement probably in early January, and that agreement will scope out what the project parameters are. So at that point in time, I believe that new council will probably be, making the final appropriation say.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you for all your hard work on this and many pivots along the way. Appreciate it. Okay, Ms. Gang, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Item 15 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-107, an ordinance authorizing a contract with J. Schmidt Homes LLC to install 9 pickleball courts, resurface 18 pickleball courts, and construct a shelter at Lefferson Park, and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Council Assistant City Manager Combs will give a brief overview of this project.
Mayor and Council, the city has been working with the Pickleball Association President Tim McGee for at least the last 6 months to renovate the existing pickleball courts located at Lefferson Park. As the staff report explained, if approved, this plan will resurface those pickleball courts, add additional courts, and build a new shelter. J. Schmidt Homes LLC was encouraged to apply by Mr. McGee. This was the only bid we received for the project. However, I did receive interest from companies who wanted to be a subcontractor of that general contractor if he was selected. The project is located in a low to moderate income area and is eligible to use CDBG funding for the entire project cost. The funding for the project is from various program years going back to 2018. The funds were either unallocated or the project they did not use all of their allocated funding. An amendment is not required to the city's CDBG annual action plan because the use is fulfilling a need in the current plan. The city will pay for the project upfront and be reimbursed for its expenses. And the project is proposed as an emergency due to the winter weather, and we're hoping to get a jump start because it is still mild out there. But that is the only reason for the emergency.
So we did originally talk about this project using some of our ARPA funding through the allocated money that we had set aside for parks.
Right.
That is correct.
But we found out that this is eligible for the CDBG funds. How does that affect the other CDBG fund park project at
Oakland?
Oakland?
It does
Yes.
not. We will still have the funding for that in place as well.
Okay.
Yeah. I just had given a little bit more thought and thought I would reach out to Mindy with CDP just because a lot of our projects have been reimbursed lately with Public Works, and it was nice to see that this actually could be used for that.
Yeah, I'm encouraged by that. And so parks can can look to see that money that we had originally allocated in ARPA funding towards another park project.
That is
Yeah, and
correct.
that is our hope, yeah, to do more with that.
I just want to
funding.
confirm that because I know that there will be a lot of questions from Park Board about how that change in funding affects the potential for us to work on other parks.
Absolutely.
And they were pleasantly surprised. I let the park board know that last
Okay.
week.
I was not able to attend that meeting, so.
Is there any update on that plan? I mean, that's been a number of months ago when we talked about the $2 million or...
The Oakland Park plan?
No, just general, we talked about putting $2 million into parks and just wondering if we've made any steps towards actually putting that money to use.
I could speak on Oakland Park. We are currently working with Ohio Connect, and they are talking to the surrounding neighborhood to try to get ideas on what the community surrounding the park would like to see. And we do look forward to moving on that in the spring, so I can speak to that project specifically.
At the park board meeting last week, I had some discussions with the park board about that. We're going to, at the December meeting, take a look at our park master plan, revisit the major priorities, and proceed in that direction.
Has staff worked to identify any other potential park projects that could also use CDBG funding and stretch our dollars a little bit that way?
Oh, we certainly will look at every avenue possible. I know one major project, and Scott might be able to elaborate a little bit, but the bathrooms at Lefferson, that's slated to...
Oh, Smith, yeah, that was,
we did
Smith Park
Smith
was the other project that we had recently used some of those allocated ARPA monies on, correct?
I thought,
Or did we-
Lefferson
used-
wasn't with that?
we-
I thought they were together. I'm wrong.
When we allocated those funds for the bathroom.
Smith Park.
We didn't
Smith
use
Park
ARPA
bathrooms?
dollars
That was
for
Smith
that.
Park
It was
only.
the, it was
Yeah, I
the
think that was
excess
just
general
Smith Park.
capital money
Right.
that was going to parks. 2 million in excess
Right.
general.
Right.
That's, we switched it from the ARPA to the
And
excess
the
funds.
cost of the Smith Park bathroom rehab came out of that, so.
We didn't touch Lefferson bathroom?
No.
Correct.
Right.
I don't know why I thought we.
Well, there are no bathrooms at
Right.
Lefferson. The-
Will there be bathrooms
tile,
included in
maybe?
this
School
new
owns the-
shelter, or no? Will there be restrooms?
No, it's just basically
It's just a
shell,
shelter?
yeah.
Okay.
On the construction piece, do we know, is there going to be any sort of, I don't know, if warranty or, I know a lot of times those courts will heave or you'll get cracks. Do we know if there's any?
I can't speak to that, but I
Long-term
can
ma-
get you an answer
Okay.
right away.
I'd just be curious. I'm glad to see that this is growing and we're going to keep these folks in town for the long term.
Yes,
Yeah, I know there
that was a
some fear that
priority.
there were neighboring communities who really wanted our pickleball
Yes, they
association
did.
here. So hopefully this will be a step in the positive direction.
Do we have that land on our radar for economic development as far as a potential building or organization or small business who would like to co-locate a restaurant/indoor facility there? I know it's extremely popular next to other pickleball courts, and I mentioned it to the last economic development team. I don't know if anything ever came of it, but we own the land.
So you're referring to Lefferson Park?
Yeah. Wait, am I thinking of the wrong park?
No, you're thinking of the correct park.
Okay,
Lefferson
yeah.
is where the pickleball.
By Baraka.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
We haven't had any legitimate discussion among staff about it. I know it has just been briefly mentioned, but it's something we definitely want to pursue. Probably most importantly, there is restroom facilities.
Right,
But
I'm just thinking about
that is something that I believe you're 100% correct.
I see it pretty much everywhere across the whole. Shoot, my brother, who like is younger than me and doesn't play pickleball, just went to some pickleball place to have dinner and eat because it was the trendy thing to do. And I see it all over the place, and I just wonder, gosh, we've got such a gem there. Is there not some company or business restaurant combo that is looking to expand and maybe just hasn't heard of us and doesn't know that we have the literally the land, we own the land next to it as well?
Much like private tennis clubs had the popularity of clubhouses and those sort of things, I think you're seeing a lot of the same things with pickleball, that in private organizations, it's easier to have that sort of built in. But
Yeah, I
I
think it's
do
more
see
of
that
an-
there was a lot of success with the food truck events that were held at Lefferson. So hopefully maybe something like that can turn into something more if there's an opportunity.
Yeah, the business model is more of an entertainment complex model, so like a Top Golf, if you will. Everyone, I think, is familiar
You have the
with
one
that.
on the Tylersville exit right now that just got Two Cities Pizza in, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, maybe on a smaller scale, but anyway, just something to keep in mind if we have some time to reach out and maybe network, and could be a great opportunity. I know you had something you were going to say.
Yeah, so question. So I think back, I remember it was January or February, whenever it was, and I remember we talked about how long it would take to actually spend this money on the parks. I know that was one of your main concerns, Monica, and our goal was for the $2 million that was going to be taken out of the general fund for capital expenses. So
The reserves, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So the goal was to sort of at least allocate it by the end of the year and then hopefully get it all finished by the end of 2024, however that would be. So we have the Smith Park bathrooms, and then we have this project, and then we have a couple other that are up in the air. So we're at about 60% of the $2 million. So I guess where I'm at personally is I see us, we don't have enough staff. I hate to keep coming back to this. We don't have enough staff to go out there and figure out how to spend this money is sort of what I see right now. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but that's what I see. So I look at how do we add more staffing, and I look at CBDG funds. And I know, unless I'm mistaken, because I know other cities are doing it, that can be spent to go towards firehouses and roads and different things like that. And I think to myself, so we're spending this amount of money on parks, which is great, but at the same time, why couldn't we have bought down the debt on the fire stations to create more working capital every year to be able to add staffing, which ultimately can get in and actually spend the money? I have no problem with the project. I love the project, but at this point, and this was my original point to city staff was, and I don't know if I was the minority or whatever, but we have to be able to we are sitting, once again, we have money and we're not able to spend it because we don't have the staffing. And that's my concern. Is this another step in the direction of using CBDG versus not using the park funds?
I will say that we have used CDBG to reimburse. Scott might be able to say the total, but we have reimbursed a lot of paving. At
Well,
least to your point.
yeah, definitely, yeah. So I'm in
least
agreement
one of
with that,
those.
yeah. So that's sort of my thing is, right, so we can use it on whatever. So if we're spending, I forget the number, whether it's $500,000 a year on paving or whatever, this is money that can be used currently to buy down debt to the city, yet we're spending it on a park which we already have allocated money for. So are we not tying ourselves? We can only use this money, the park money, on certain things, but CBDG, we can be a little bit more flexible, yet at this point we're pigeonholing ourselves, is what I see. So I don't know how the rest of council feels about that. Maybe I'm completely wrong. I want to get the project done. I want to get this going, but at the same time, are we pigeonholing ourselves? That's what I'm asking right now.
I know there's certain restrictions on the CDBG funds. I mean, you
Yeah,
say we can spend them on anything, but
Well, no. I'm saying that it's more flexible.
I do want to speak up for these funds that we're using for this project specifically. A lot of them were pulled from a couple of examples: funds set aside for park improvements, funds set aside for beautification improvements, funds for park facilities. I mean, we did try to be mindful of where we were pulling, like where these were meant to be spent. So there was a little bit of thought but to your point, I totally agree with you.
No, I agree with what you're
Be
saying.
more creative with spending those.
hopefully we can just spend a whole lot more money on parks.
Right.
That would be great, but we can't even get it allocated because we don't have the staff to do that.
But I do appreciate all ideas, I mean, to your point.
And I appreciate the work you guys are putting into this. Like, seriously, this is not, I want you to understand, this is not a knock on you guys.
Yep.
You guys can only do so much. There's only so much broadband that you guys have. And that's all I'm saying is we have to start getting creative on how to get more people in this building. We need executors, and we just don't have enough. And this is just a plea of, and maybe this, we just go ahead and approve it, but in the future, we have to figure out how to get if we have an opportunity, we're sitting on money, why can't we buy down debt? This goes back to my original point from a couple months ago. And I don't know, That's just my thoughts right now. So I'll go ahead and approve it, but
Just a general thought to kind of wrap that up, and I'm going to look up at our next council up here and just say, like, you are inheriting a situation financially that we didn't inherit 5, 10, 15 years ago. And I think the frustration you're feeling is it's like, hey, now we can finally do it. Like, let's do it. We actually have the money. And I'm with you on that. And you guys, I think, all have our support for going out and doing what needs to be done, you know, next year. You know, it's time, it's go time, right? And I think that's the frustration you're voicing, is it's time to go, and you don't want to miss the opportunity. And I'm 100% with you there, Zach.
I appreciate that. I mean, I remember what the fund was when I walked into this, right, and what it is now. And I hate to just see us continue to do the same thing over and over and over because, well, everybody knows why. So I'll stop talking.
Well, the grant funds have stipulations, but ARPA does also. We have to earmark that. You lose it. So, I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying. And I see what Ashley's saying as well. I mean, I get it. But this is exciting. I mean, I had no idea until a couple years ago how popular pickleball was. And oh my gosh, I went to one of the tournaments and it was just packed. So, I mean, that's what we want. We want people to come here. So to keep that here is really cool because like the mayor said, some of these other places, the one off Tylersville and the one in Cincinnati, I mean, they're pretty big too. So we want to make this the capital here. So, and anytime we can spend money on a park, I think that's awesome. I think the parks need it. A lot of parks need it. So it's a good point, Zach.
And Monica, to your point, I'm not trying to not spend money on parks. I'm actually trying to get the money spent on the parks.
I'm just teasing with you because I'm always up here saying we should spend more money on parks, and I'll go out of my seat screaming about spending more money on the parks. So
December 31st,
that's all.
Facebook post, right?
Yeah.
Do we feel comfortable voting on this one as it is then? I mean, I know you'd rather see it differently, but.
Yeah, I mean, you know, support the good, limit the bad. I'm going to support. It's a good project. I'm going to support it.
Okay.
And to anyone interested in helping us grow our pickleball association,
Yes.
give Paul a call.
Great. Okay, Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Great. The next item tonight is resolution number R 2023-35, a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Butler County Land Reutilization. Sorry.
We should have Ben tonight.
Thanks. All right, I'm just going to start over if that's okay. Item 16 is resolution number R 2023-35, a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit a grant application to the Butler County Land Reutilization Corporation to participate in the environmental cleanup and brownfield remediation program for the former Middletown paperboard site and declaring an emergency.
So move for adoption.
Second.
Once again, our Assistant City Manager, Ashley Combs, will brief us on item 16.
Mayor and council, approval allows for the city to apply for additional funding of $1.5 million that is needed to remediate the paperboard site. The city is applying for funding on the advice from our VAP manager, Burgess and Nyepel. The city originally requested $3.38 million from the Butler County Board of Commissioners for the project. However, the city was only awarded $3 million. And I say only, we're grateful. $3 million is huge. The majority of that funding was budgeted for the VAP manager, the demolition of the existing structures and debris, and removal of the asbestos-containing material. There's approximately $300,000 left of the original Butler County ARPA that was approved. This will not be enough to cover the cost of the environmental cleanup and brownfield remediation. The city is currently finalizing the contract for the demolition and site clearing with Renaissance. And once that's finalized, the contractor is prepared to start immediately. So that is any time, and we're very excited about that.
Comments or questions?
I just have to say, this coming to a close at the end of my 4-year term is a light at the end of the tunnel, I guess, because it happened the day that Tal and Nicole and I received our first, well, Tal was coming back for his second term, but on our first day in office, on New Year's Day 4 years ago. So sometimes things come full circle, and I'm just thankful to see this moving forward in the right direction, and hopefully getting cleaned up and being able to be converted into useful property in Middletown.
Any more comments or questions? Okay, Ms. Skank, if you'll please call the roll.
Mayor Condrey,
Yes.
Mr. Farrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw.
Yes.
Item 17 tonight is resolution number R 2023-36, a resolution imposing a one-year moratorium on residential development and the acceptance or issuance of any permit or other approval thereof within certain BC, which is the Business Center, zoning subdistricts within the city of Middletown, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
So moved for adoption.
Second.
Council Assistant City Manager Cahill will brief us on legislative item 17.
Mayor, members of council, we have a situation. So we have a little bit of incongruence that we've identified between what's in our development code and what's in the comprehensive plan that you folks recently adopted. For the predominantly our BC districts, which is predominantly along the eastern side of I-75, our eastern I-75 frontage. And in those districts, with the exception of BCR and the Business Center Industrial, those other districts do allow for commercial, but they also allow for residential. The comprehensive plan's guidance for this area of the community is that it was predominantly to be a future job center for the city, focused predominantly on commercial development, light industrial R&D, and so forth. In residential, as a mix to those uses, was contemplated and encouraged, but it to be secondary and complementary, and or used as a buffer or a step down in land use intensity, especially to maybe some of the developed residential in the Hunter area. And that's all fine and good, makes good planning sense. The issue that we've discovered is that our zoning code can allow for all of that land just to come in as, for instance, a large apartment development and go 100% multifamily or 100% condos or whatever other type of residential, with no requirement for any mixture of commercial development within those developments, let alone it being the preponderance of the development's character. And so what's in front of you is a request by staff to place a up to 12-month moratorium to allow staff and also then ultimately the Planning Commission to weigh this issue and then hopefully provide you a final recommendation on a zoning code amendment. And so what this would say is that in terms of residential development, I'm looking at all our BC districts in my mind, essentially both sides of Union Road north of 122, development of that area would need to stay, during this moratorium period, would need to stay strictly non-residential until this matter would be settled to your folks' liking and satisfaction.
I would just say thank you for bringing this. I think you guys all know this has kind of been the hill I've been dying on for a couple years. So I'm pleased to see this happening. Not that we're against residential or we're against multifamily. It's just this was specifically set aside to be the future job growth for this city. And that's what it needs to be. And I was very concerned that it would just start running. You know, the word would get out that Middletown was doing multifamily on the east end, and it would just spread like wildfire. So I'm very happy to see it.
Mr. Tao's right. I mean, from an economic development standpoint, the city staff, we see that corridor as the city's beachfront property. That needs to be very mindfully stewarded.
Good comparison.
Just to clarify, this would not hinder any existing development.
No, ma'am.
that's
So
currently-
you'll see in the draft legislation in front of you, there's a section that excludes folks who have vested rights. So that would mean anyone who has already applied for something that would fall under this moratorium or is already underway through the entitlement process or is currently under construction. So example would be some of the property, they're north of the hospital, they're well underway. the Atticus project is made past that threshold and has a vested interest.
Where's the Atticus project at right now?
Last discussion we had with the Warren County Port Authority is they are finalizing some closing documents for their sales tax transaction. If I was a betting man, I'd say probably breaking ground in earlier next year. That's what it's looking like.
Not going to hit before the end of the year then, obviously.
Doesn't look as if.
Okay.
Although I did see Mr. Wallace on LinkedIn the other night, and apparently he adopted a stray puppy that he found over there on Market and Union. So, cute dog.
Well, I guess he's committed to Middletown then.
Just imagine you creeping on everybody's LinkedIn file that is doing business with Middletown right now, at night. Yep.
Did he name the puppy Rodney? In honor?
I don't know. That I don't know.
What the heck? What did I do to you, Tal?
Just because it's your last meeting.
Thank you. Sounds like a good move to me. Any other comments or questions?
That's funny.
Okay, Ms. Ganku, please call the roll.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaw?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Item 18 tonight is ordinance number O-2023-108, an ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Thermal Process Systems for the purchase of an APT 5420 cask complete pump for the water reclamation facility and declaring an emergency. No action is requested until December 5th, 2023.
Council, this is one of the jet pumps at the water refinery facilities. This will be for $77,000. This is one of 5 pumps we have there. This one was totally worn out, was unable to be repaired.
Comments or questions? Okay, we're ready for the last legislation.
All right, the last item is ordinance number O-2023-109, an ordinance amending certain sections of Chapter 891, the municipal income tax, effective beginning January 1, 2016, of the codified ordinances and declaring an emergency. And again, no action is requested until December 5, 2023.
Council, this ordinance amends various sections of our municipal income tax, which meets the mandated changes by House Bill 33, which was passed on October 3rd, 2023, for municipal tax procedures and statutes. It's not uncommon for us to have to do annual housekeeping and such items.
I'm just curious, what is the number that minors pay income tax into the city? Any idea?
Say that again.
So am I, well, I'm going off this here. So section 891.03 minors exemption, effective tax year 2024, minors are exempt from income tax. I was just curious on if you knew. I'm going over here, but anyways, I can ask later.
Do you know, Sam?
They're exempt, yeah.
We're exempt? Okay.
But they weren't already exempt though, correct? I was just curious on what.
They were.
They were?
We're, yes.
I'd asked
At least
last
in
year.
Middletown.
Well, no, I'd asked last year and I thought that the answer was they were not exempt, but.
I don't recall.
They will still make they still actually, I believe, have to withhold for state taxes.
Yeah.
I think they
but
can ask for a
incomes,
refund
yeah.
later.
Okay, I was just curious. All good.
Okay. That's
Any
all I
other
have.
comments or questions? Okay, that brings us to new business items. We know we have a process for replacement to discuss. Are there any other new business items we want to bring up before that? I did want to commend city staff and also thank you for a lot of back and forth emails about demolition and stuff. You answered a lot of questions that are really helpful for me. I think it spurred discussion from the newspaper article about the land bank in Middletown having 40-some properties they were sending, and I started panicking, like, why are we like trying to knock stuff down in our city? And now I kind of understand. I think we can use a little bit more strategic. We realized we were maybe lacking a strategic overview of how do we even, do we have criteria for what we should be demolishing or not based on plans for the city and economic development and just the fabric of our neighborhoods and just business districts, et cetera. And I think maybe to date, it's been more that the money is there, this building isn't doing so hot, okay, let's maybe add it to the list without a little bit bigger strategic. So I'm grateful you guys are looking into it and figuring out what makes sense and how we can make a plan. I know we're seeing a lot of cities, Detroit, for example, probably the most extreme of they were knocking a whole bunch of stuff down and all of a sudden hit the brakes and said, whoa, maybe we actually need to try to salvage this as much as possible. So I don't know how much of it is able to work with the land bank to help salvage, the buildings. I know ultimately that's supposed to be their goal, but they end up demolishing more often than not. So I'm not sure, exactly why that is from their perspective. But as a city, before we maybe go give it to them, I'm grateful you guys are looking into that. I think it's going to help a lot moving forward. So thank you.
Being on the board, their answer to that is they don't want to be in the real estate business. So it's tear down or don't tear down. It's no, let's save them. It's no, rehab them. It's just.
It's terrible for economics. But yeah.
I'm just a guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Great. Well, thanks. I look forward to maybe not so many patchwork neighborhoods if we can avoid it. Now, there's a lot of young people out there, and I think potential business owners who are willing to put the sweat equity into saving some of these buildings because, as we know, housing is at a premium. So, great. Thank you. Do we want to move on to the? Okay. So process-wise. I've heard a few suggestions for putting some sort of a call for applications out, maybe giving people a week to apply, maybe council reviewing that, and before the next council meeting, holding an executive session to interview those who applied, and at the end of the next council meeting, having an executive session to discuss all of that, followed by coming back in an open session to vote for a replacement. That is just one idea out there as to how to go about this, but I feel like we need to start with somewhere to have the discussion. So I will throw that out as a potential way that we could do this. I'm open to other ideas. I will say we've gotten lots of input from a lot of people on how to do this process, and I appreciate all of it. I feel as though Mr. Meterspaw was elected in the political climate that was 2 years ago. And I feel that that's, in my opinion, why this council should be the ones to appoint and should also take applications instead of just going with those who ran in the current election. There's another thing to be said for those who ran in the current election. We're running for a 4-year term, and there may be people willing to serve in a role on council that is only a 2-year term. And so it may bring others out who perhaps were not willing to serve the 4 years. So it's a different situation. In my opinion, there's also, there's also something to be said for, there's a reason why we have alternating terms, and I think it's dangerous for 4 positions on council to all have essentially come from one election. And there is a reason why we have 3 and 2. So that's at first I thought, I let the new council determine, but the more I thought about it, I think it is more appropriate for us to make that decision, and I've had a lot of citizens request that of us. So,
Mayor, real quick, I want to make it clear that will not be voting on the replacement for me. I should make that real clear. Because I've had people reach out and say, well, who are you voting for? How are you going to do this? And I spoke with Brody and Ben, and it's not appropriate for me to vote on my replacement. And so I'm going to follow their lead. And you have 4 extremely experienced, qualified people up here who can make that decision without me. So just want to make that clear.
Well, I think the way it was explained too, we wouldn't even be able to vote on your replacement until you have vacated the seat.
Yes.
So that also points to the need for the 4
Yes.
remaining council members to be the ones to.
I think that's so important to note is I was told today by our attorneys that they can't even vote until I'm officially gone. So if I officially leave tomorrow or December 4th, you can't vote until I'm gone. You can't pre-vote and.
Yeah. And I think kind of like I said earlier, it's not a position that we ever thought we would be in or ever wanted to be in, to have to select your replacement. It's not an easy decision, whether it would be for us to make or for the new council to make. It's, this is someone who will be representing our city for the next 2 years, and that's something that I don't think any of us take lightly. So
I will say, the only thing to back up the mayor is, and after this I'm out of the discussion, is that when we had a school board member leave and a council member leave here in the last 10 years, those current boards and councils selected a replacement. And I don't know if they did an application process, Mayor, but I know they did select. So, for what it's worth.
I just had one thought and then some questions. Councils almost every year that are outgoing appoint boards and commissions for future councils. Happened December 17th, 2013, happened December 15th, 2015, they discussed, and then the next council voted in January. It happened December 19th, 2017, happened again on the 5th, 2017, and it happened December 17th, 2019. So it's not without precedent that outgoing councils would appoint board members. I know this is not an apples to apples perfect example, but I actually don't think there's a wrong answer either way for either council to do it. I think it's perfectly fine for either council to do it, and since you're choosing now, we have the responsibility to do it since we're still here for another couple weeks. The question I had is really more probably for Brody. I know Ben last week, as he was kind of going through, hey, I want to research this, I want to make sure that we do it right. Is there any additions to that we should know about and the public should know about before we discuss a process?
Yeah, sure. So the city's charter speaks very clearly for when a vacancy on council occurs, and it's really left to the council to replace that. The tricky part here, as Rodney kind of got to, is that there really isn't a vacancy until he vacates, right? So we were having this conversation, just kind of ignoring him in the corner over there, but really there's not really a vacancy to fill until he officially resigns. And so I think, the conversation we're having is contemplating this as being his last meeting and resigning at some point before the December 5th meeting. You certainly can take steps beforehand, knowing that the vacancy is coming, but the charter is really clear that the authority rests with council to appoint. A question we had is, well, what if there's 4 of you then? What if you can't decide, right? And so the charter actually doesn't speak to that. And so in that case, what we would normally do then is look at the revised code, specifically as it pertains to cities and villages and municipal corporations. It's a little screwy how we get there, but ultimately, if the vacancy is occurring for 30 days, at the 31st day, then the position of mayor appoints the vacancy, or appoints someone to fill the vacancy. So I think that's just it's a little nuanced, and it's because you guys are elected as nonpartisan officials. You don't have an R or D next to your name. You don't run in a primary, that sort of thing. So typically in a city over 5,000, that's not an uncommon approach, and the central committee would do that. But because you guys are nonpartisan, we revert to where the authority in the revised code rests with the mayor. So what I mean to say is, the charter is very clear that when there's a vacancy, it rests with council. If for some reason council does not appoint or fill that position within 30 days, then the authority then switches over, and it's the mayor's responsibility to appoint someone. So that's hopefully answering your question, Tal. There's really the sequence or process isn't described. I think the mayor, or the process the mayor described, is not an uncommon approach. I know I live in Lebanon. We've had 2 vacancies in the last, I think, 3 years. Both of those were application processes where they received applications for some period, interviewed, and then ultimately were selected and appointed by council. So I think it's a very common approach. I'm not saying it's the only approach, but it is, I think, a common one. Hopefully that answered your question.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have the ability, Amy, through how the boards and commissions, it's like an electronic application. Do we have anything where we could create a special application for city council? I couldn't hear.
So the last time this happened is when Mr. Armbruster passed away when he was in office, and we accepted applications through the city council office. I looked back to see if Troy was still here, but he's not. So the application could come in through the city council office. If people wanted to submit letters of interest and resumes, I could ask Troy tomorrow if he could put a link on the website where it could come in like a board and commission application. Yeah. But I don't have that knowledge to ask him, directly, or you know what I mean? I don't know that to be a thing, but probably.
So one thing to consider, if to the mayor's point, and I agree with your course of action there. I think that if we did, for the next meeting, if we did interview process before that, do the regular meeting, and then after that, executive session, hopefully we all agree upon somebody, and then vote somebody in after that, especially so they can come in with one council meeting before the end of the year to have, one under their belt before new council. So I agree with that. So I would say, I guess the timeline, that's something we need to discuss as well, if we're going to do that. So if we are going to do that, we would obviously need to call executive session beforehand. So should we make the cutoff for applications maybe next Thursday or something of that sort, or Friday by noon, so that way we have enough time to then call the executive session, because we don't know how many applications we're going to get, so we don't really know how much time we need. And then we need to also discuss, are we going to do 10-minute interviews, 15-minute? Is it going to be different for everybody? Are we going to try to shove everybody through in 2 hours? Like, what's the process going to be? That's something that we need to consider here as well.
Well, and those applications would come to you directly. They would come in instantly to your emails as they were received.
Well, that's,
If they
yes.
go through the portal, if they drop it offhand,
Well, then I would just scan them and email them to you then as they came in if they were hand delivered. But through the portal, yes, it would be instantly delivered to your email, just like a board and commission application is done.
Yeah, but my point is, like, as far as interviews.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, for sure. I would say, I think next Thursday is a good day, because that gives us one more day that staff is around to help if we need to collect any hard copies, scan things or whatever, and then try to figure out the start time, right, for whatever that meeting would be that's on Tuesday. I don't want to try to make that on Monday and rush it, so I would say Thursday, like you said, was a good.
Thursday at 5. I guess you guys, I want you to be a part of the conversation too, so I'm not trying to railroad this.
Could it be possible for us, depending on how many applications we get, to hold a special session on Monday for those interviews, as opposed to doing this before the next regular council meeting? I don't know if that is something that everyone would be interested in, maybe getting together on Monday, if the applications are due on Thursday. I do agree that getting those applications in by Thursday, the 30th, would give us at least enough time to review those applications. And then maybe we have a special meeting on the 27th.
I like that idea, actually, in that it then gives us an evening to think about the interviews and not.
Sure, and we're not exactly making that decision until we come in on the 5th. So we're just conducting interviews on that day for the special meeting.
But then, maybe then the applications would just come through the board and commission portal. People would just use the regular board and commission application.
As long as there's a clear way for them.
When on that section, it asks what board and commission you're applying for, city council member.
Is there a way to attach anything? Because quite honestly, I would love, this is a step above board and commission, like attach your professional resume. Like, I would like more than what's on the board and commission. Do we know if, that's my concern about using.
I was gonna,
Rather than just sending an email with a letter of interest.
Yeah, I'm not a big
and
fan
a
of the
resume.
application to begin with.
Just to avoid any of the technical challenges that might come with having IT set up something on the site and navigating the site. If there's just if they send their emails to Amy directly.
I'm more than happy to do that, of course.
Amy S. at City of Middletown.
I think they should have to submit qualifications and maybe a one-page letter on why they think they deserve to represent 50,000+ people.
Yeah, I would like to see a letter and a resume of qualifications.
I appreciate the expediency of the board and commission portal, and that it does come straight to us, and there is a.
But it doesn't really give you a chance to attach anything. I'm looking at it here. So, like I say, my email obviously would be a good way to do it, and then I will just make it the number one priority is to get those things to you immediately.
Can we also take this request for applications and publish it in the newspaper, publish it on Facebook, publish it anywhere we can publish?
Yeah, we
Just
need
so
to-
that this call for applications is wide.
Absolutely, on the city's social media platforms. I know that we can get that done immediately. As far as the paper goes, as far as in the journal, or, I don't see Rick.
The Monroe meeting must have ran long
We're probably
tonight.
too late for like public
But-
notice, right?
As far as the paper goes, I'm happy to call them, reach out to them first thing in the morning, but there is usually several days lag time, so it wouldn't hit the paper till probably maybe Friday or Saturday. There's a couple days, that they, by the time you submit something, that it gets to them. But they would still have however many days that is
Sure.
to do it. And I'm sure I could reach out to Rick and let him know that, and that he would put something in the
We
story.
called Rick, he would do it.
I'm sure Rick could
immediately.
have something in the digital version.
would do it
So
better.
he'd write an article probably for it.
That could get out there. I don't think that's
Yeah,
a
so
problem.
like I say, I'm
Or
happy
Rick,
to
if
do
you're listening.
whatever council wants to do with this.
Is there
Yeah.
an email all to council, or is that only an internal listserv? You remember there was the all council?
All
That's the thing.
council at City of Middletown.
Yeah, we've gotten plenty of
It
those.
says it's internal.
I thought so.
I don't understand technology, so.
But Amy is usually pretty good about getting those forwarded to us and
Yeah, like I say, that'll be,
making sure that we
a
have
top
these.
priority as those come in, to get those right back out to you immediately.
Okay. I think that's our
Yeah.
best option.
I would feel comfortable with that process and requesting that meeting for Monday. I don't know if there's a certain time that works for the four of us to meet on Monday, the 4th.
I'm pretty open.
Yeah.
I'd
We could
rather,
meet at our regular meeting time of 5:30 if that works for people's work schedules, unless a different time is more appropriate.
well, that's true. I mean, yeah, we're gonna have the situation of people aren't gonna be able to, if they can't make one meeting, how do we do okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we have if they can't make the Monday meeting, we can meet with them on Tuesday before the meeting. They need to, we can't, I remember, I've seen this happen, and people feel like they're left out. So why don't we do a Monday morning and then do a Tuesday at 4:30 if you can't make the Monday morning, so that way there's a couple different time zones for people.
That works for me.
I'm available for that if that's what everyone else wants to do. I don't know if it's messing with people's schedules.
Unless that doesn't work,
Like how early on Monday?
5 a.m. I mean, I don't care. I'm flexible. I don't care. I just think that we should do two different time models, so that way
I'm still
it's
in the
fair.
gym at 5 a.m., so sorry. I don't know what you're doing at 5 a.m.
9, 8:30?
9?
So Brody, if
Fine.
that's the dates that's being prepared, so I should probably resign prior to that. So in case they make a decision, there has to be a vacancy, correct?
Yeah, but my guess is they'll probably have the decision at the meeting on Tuesday night rather than, like, that's when the discussion would probably occur. And my guess, again, I'm not projecting, but that it'll be interviews pretty much on that Monday morning and perhaps Tuesday afternoon.
Okay.
So long as it's before the before the vote occurs, if
I
that
just didn't know how
makes
quick they
sense.
might, yeah, okay.
There's only one other timeline thing, and I think we'll all be able to come up with an agreement on the individual, but should we not be able to, the 30-day thing would occur, and thus, if you waited until December and we didn't come up with,
Sure.
we did not agree, then it would be up to the next mayor. I'm just,
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I was getting at earlier. So if it's not before December 1st or earlier,
right.
then
Okay.
the 30 days would lapse
Okay.
January 1, which when the new mayor
Okay.
takes office. But I'm not trying to be gamesmanship with that. I'm just the reality of it.
Right.
Yeah, I just want to make it easier for everybody. I know it's hard enough as it is, so I don't want
Yeah. I mean, I think it's, however you want to do it and whenever you want to do it, as long as it's before. I'm just kidding. Before there's someone, there can't be a vote to appoint someone
to, right.
until you resign. So.
Okay.
And Paul, what is the date for the swearing in of the new council members?
12th of December at 6
12th.
p.m.
12th of December. So,
It is December the 12th. It's the off
Okay.
So I
given
actually,
that we would make if we were able to make that decision on the 5th of December meeting, they would be able to potentially get sworn in with the other new members?
yeah, I mean, technically they would assume office after the vote, right? Because there's a vacancy. You could do like a fancier ceremonial swearing in, but we probably would want to swear them in that
It's a nice
night.
thing to
And be
invite your
able to
friends
attend
to.
the
and-
council orientation.
Yeah. But I would probably swear them, not me, Ben will be here, but
But they
swear them in
should
that
need
night.
to be sworn in at that meeting where they accept their position?
They don't have to be, but I think that probably makes the most sense. That way we're operating with, 5.
So
Okay.
So if council decided and they appointed the person on the 5th, at the meeting, at the regular meeting on the 5th, then the swearing-in ceremony is scheduled for the 12th. They could be sworn in, and then they would actually sit in their seat on the 18th. So, or I'm sorry, on the 19th, so that, timeline-wise, it works.
It's fine with me.
So then I would be happy to call a special meeting of council for the purpose of going to executive discussion to discuss the appointment of a public official on Monday, December 4th at 9 a.m., and then also call a special meeting of council. I could arbitrarily say 4:30 for now on the 5th.
Well, if everybody,
Don't
yeah,
know.
I wouldn't even call it until,
We know, the problem is we're not going to
We
know.
can hold that 9 a.m. session and then request another session for the next day if we are not able to fit in all of
Better
the.
to cancel if we.
I would say it's better to cancel, but you still would be within your 24-hour requirement if you did it.
I'll
after
probably just
Monday
send an
morning.
email for both to request both meetings, and then if everyone can do the 9 a.m. Or whatever, however long it takes us to get through everyone, and we get everyone done Monday, then there won't be a need for the Tuesday. Well, it's not just that, it's everyone's availability, right?
Right.
So if everyone is available to meet with us on Monday, then we won't need the Tuesday.
And perhaps in the posting, you say, submit your application by Thursday at 5. Interviews will be conducted Monday morning, so that way folks are aware in advance.
Monday morning, starting at 9 a.m.
Exactly.
Or Tuesday at 4:30 p.m. if you're unavailable.
Just so that way they're aware of it when they're kind of going in eyes open.
Okay, that being said, do you want me to draft that language for the applications? I know this is a council-directed thing. I'm happy to help. I just don't know what our roles and responsibilities can or should be and who's posting what and.
So I'm happy to write it up.
Okay.
Send it back to you and to you. Make sure that everybody likes the wording that I chose. But basically, we're asking for a letter of, an applicant, or a
Letter of interest?
letter of interest and a resume sent to my email by Thursday, December 3rd, or November 30th by 5 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get that out on the city's social media platforms. It'll be on the city website. I'm going to contact the Journal, have a legal ad, ask Rick to write up a story and try to get the word out there to as many people as possible. Then council will meet in special session Monday morning at 9 a.m. to review those applications, or they were already reviewed them individually, because you'll all have them to your email, and you'll interview candidates.
Mm-hmm. How long do we need with each candidate?
Find out after the first one.
I don't know that we necessarily want to, in my opinion, put a time, like, I don't know.
The only thing is, if we're not meeting before this Monday, now it's, all these are going to come in. If there's 2 of them, when do we tell the candidates to show up? If there's 30 of them, when do we tell them each to show up? I guess that's my,
I think that's something that we discuss on Friday after we see how many applications we get.
can we discuss that? Is that an open meetings law violation?
Paul can arrange that, correct?
We can get.
Can we give a
input
minimum
from
of time
folks.
that we want Can we agree on that?
Minimum, I would want to spend maybe 15 minutes with each candidate. I feel like that sounds like a reasonable amount of time.
But the
Most
thing
job
is, you don't know
interviews
if
that
you'll
I
get
have-
one candidate or 15. That's the
Right.
thing. You have no idea, so it's hard to.
Definitely.
Yeah, someone's going to have to coordinate the scheduling anyways. I assume that would be Amy. Maybe
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. The
wrong-
scheduling is going to be a
Yeah.
bear if we don't tell her how long we want. And we can't expect people to hang out here for
Yeah, right.
4
Show up
hours
at 9
waiting
and,
to-
yeah.
Well, how about if when we see how many candidates that we have, that we give people a window?
Yeah,
Window is my first thought, but
15
I
30
think
15 to 30
I think
minutes with
15
each.
minutes sounds reasonable. If there's some reason that we need to go over with a certain candidate, I think we can play that by ear during the interview. Maybe, yeah, I think 15 minutes sounds.
So schedule them 20 minutes apart. Loosely, and if
that's fair.
the schedule goes off, it goes off, but, okay.
Try to fill up the 9 o'clock time slots first and then take
Yeah.
it from there.
All right.
Okay. Is that clear enough? Do you feel
It
good?
is. I feel clear enough.
Great. Any other new business items? Okay, do we have a motion to move to executive session under the authority of ORC 121.22G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Gank, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Thomas?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Muederspaul?
Yes.
Mayor Condrey?
Yes.
Mr. Farrell?
Yes.
And we have no plans to vote following the executive session. It will just be a council-only session, and we will come back into session only to just close the meeting up. Great. So then next time we're meeting is Monday, December 4th at 9 a.m. here in council chambers. So until then, blue skies over Middletown, and thank you, Mr. Muederspaul, for all of your service.
Thank you, Mayor.